and welcome to another exciting episode of Porch Talk. I, of course, am Paul W. Marino, and my co-host here to my left and your right is the one and only Eugene Michaelenko.
Glad to be
Or is
here.
that Michaelenko?
I like Michael.
All right.
The crowd cheers.
So, before we begin, please notice the photo behind us. Joanne, would you please put that? Thank you. Gee, I didn't even have to finish. It's almost like being married.
You're right.
Scary thought, yeah. So, this is the mystery photo, and I'm hoping this is a medium difficulty, because I think it's still standing, isn't it?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
All
All right, in that case, it's a difficult
But
one.
it was standing up until about maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago. So people might remember it when they drove by it.
So this is a medium to difficult.
Yeah.
So if you can tell us what building this is, or if you just have a wild guess, a stab in the dark, as it were, please don't aim for us, but give us a call at 664-4408 and take a guess. And if you are correct, you will have bragging rights for the next 2 weeks. Woohoo! So, thank you, Joanne. There we go. So remember, we're counting on both of you that are watching to call in and try to tell us what building that was. So, shall we go to our photos, or do you want to hear a story first?
How long is your story?
Not long.
Sure?
Minutes.
That's a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have some that would take a couple of shows to get through and not doing anything else.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
All right. Let's see here.
We're almost there. Please stand by.
Or sit by, as the case may be. Oh, come on.
We are experiencing technical difficulties.
Marino.org.
Oh, they're on your web page?
Oh, yes. I can't hear you. Oh. Everybody's a critic. There, now I have my microphone on. Okay, so, and fiction. And do you want a nice story, an off-the-wall story, or a dreadful story?
It's Christmas time, so make it a nice story.
All right, we'll make it a nice story.
Be of good cheer.
Now, this is titled, there we go, okay. This is titled The Farm, and this is actually a rewrite of one that I wrote years ago when I was in my writer's group. It was a deceptively simple canvas, an open meadow of lush green grass bisected by a lazy river with purple mountains in the distance, a blue sky flecked with clouds, a red barn with white trim by the river, and in the foreground, a smiling milkmaid in a homespun dress. Titled Riverside Farm, it was not the old man's greatest work, though it had been his favorite. His career was some 50 years long, and for most of those years, the farm, as he liked to call it, hung in his own living room. It was admired by family and guests, though more out of courtesy than any genuine love of it. Like the art world, they much preferred his other works, though now that he was gone, everything he'd ever created, in oils, watercolor, pencil, pen, and ink, even rough sketches, were poised to sell at top dollar. To his children and grandchildren, as well as a few other heirs, there was nothing wrong with this. Each and all were delighted to see his work selling for what it was actually worth. Not like in much of his lifetime, when they sold for pennies on the dollar, though as his name achieved its due prestige, the prices raised substantially, enabling him to live well and send his sons to Ivy League universities, though only one had been interested. Tom, the eldest and named for his grandfather, was eager to spread his wings and motivated to spread them as far and wide as he could. He attended Harvard, majoring in pre-law, then moved on to Harvard Law. From there, he won a position in a prestigious Wall Street firm where he specialized in business law. Within 10 years, he established his own firm, representing his father among many others. Larry, named after his father, was the younger of the two and much closer to the old man, which did not mean that Tom was snubbed by their father. The old man loved his children equally. He was proud of Tom's drive and independence and learned to accept business advice from his eldest son. But he related much better to Larry. While Tom had a marvelous head for business, his interests in the arts strayed toward what it was worth more than what it meant or inspired. Larry was much more creative. He and the old man loved visiting museums and could talk for hours on end. Indeed, Larry had actually exercised an influence on his father's work. His tastes often led his father's inspirations, though on occasion he also made suggestions that the old man acted on. If there was one thing more than any other that they both agreed on, it was their mutual love for Riverside Farm. Both sons understood why he kept the canvas on his wall, because he loved it, but only Larry understood why he loved it. Though there was nothing in the will that specified what was to be done with the painting, Larry had always intended to claim it. Indeed, the will did say that the father's personal effects were to be divided between his sons, each taking what he wanted. There was no way that Tom would want that canvas, so Larry was greatly perturbed to enter his late father's apartment, only to find that Riverside Farm was absent, leaving a pale rectangle on the wall. The furniture was all there, all his personal effects, the kitchen appliances, and so on, but every work of art was gone. It took a frantic hour for Larry to get through to Tom. His secretary insisted he was in a meeting and was holding all his calls, so Larry hailed a cab and sought out his brother's office. The meeting was still going strong, so he was forced to wait. And wait. And wait until at long last the conference room door opened and a stream of men in suits emerged. "Lair," Tom called, "what brings you here?" "Where is it?" Larry answered. "Where's what?" "Dad's painting, Riverside Farm." "That old thing?" "Langer's gallery." "Langer's? What the hell is it doing there?" Tom sighed softly. "Let's do this in my office." Larry followed him into the office, a spacious corner room with a desk almost the size of a sports car. Tom dropped his papers on the desk, went straight to a decanter of fine Scotch whiskey, and poured out 2 fingers each into a pair of glasses. Larry ignored the glass held out to him. "Well?" he demanded. Tom sipped from one of the glasses, setting the other on his desk. I had all the artworks moved to Langer's. You know Dad had good taste when it came to his own collection. Yes, I do, but you had no business moving the farm, too. Nonsense. We're selling everything except the farm. That's mine. Don't be silly, Lair. He went around the desk and sat down. Dad's collection and his unsold works are going on auction this afternoon. We can expect to collect up to $5 million. But you can't sell the farm. I want that canvas. Lair, you're not thinking straight. The estate is being liquidated as dictated by the will. The will says that we can each take what we want from his personal effects. So take his couch and a few bottles of that French wine he collected. I want the farm. Lair, do you know what Langer told me about that piece? On its own, he said, it's nothing special, arguably a third-rate piece. But Dad painted it, which will increase its value. On top of that, it was his favorite piece. Out of everything he ever created, that's the one he loved the most. Do you know what that means? It means bucks, little brother. Langer thinks we can get 5 figures for that one piece. 5 figures. I don't care if we can get $1 million for it. Dad loved it. I love it. I want it. It's my share of his estate. Your share of his estate is going to be a lot better than a third-rate canvas. Is that all you think about? Money? No, it's not all I think about. But don't forget who Dad appointed as his executor. You think he did that by accident? He did it because he knew that I know how to get his heirs, including you, little brother, the most bang for his bucks. Larry stormed across the office, waving his arms. Don't you get it? I don't care about the money. I want the painting. Oh, come on, Lair. What's so special about it? It was Dad's favorite, and mine too. You don't know what that painting meant to us. Tom sighed sharply. Okay, so what did it mean to you? Like you care? Come on, Larry, explain it to me. Larry was silent for a minute, getting a grip on his temper. When he spoke, his voice was calm and quiet. There are several things. If you study it, you start to see that the shape of the mountains is mirrored by the course of the river. There's a sense of motion in the grass as if the wind is blowing through it. But there was something else too. Dad always said that it was more than just a painting, that it was a place we could go to when life was too much. Oh yeah, I remember that now. Nonsense, of course. It wasn't nonsense to Dad. Anger was coming back into Larry's voice. Look, Lair, it's too late now. The auction is starting in another, he looked at his desk clock, 2 hours. Take the couch, take some wine, take his car. That'll give you plenty to remember him by. Larry leaned on the desk, glaring into his brother's eyes. Screw the couch. I want the painting. Then you'd better raid your bank account and be sure you make the winning bid. Trust me, Larry, it's for the best. Larry breathed heavily a few moments, then stormed out, muttering obscenities. When Tom went to the auction, he did not see Larry there, though Mr. Langer told him he had seen Larry briefly an hour earlier. He'd barely...
Oh, just a second. There we go.
Battery was running low and that was not turned on. Okay, so he'd barely spoken before stalking into the gallery's storeroom where the items were all awaiting the sale. When the auction netted some $6 million US, Tom called his brother, but got no answer. In fact, he never saw his brother again. The police gained admittance to Larry's apartment and found it untouched. As the investigation went on, they began to think he might have committed suicide and dragged the rivers. They searched the alleys and parks. No remains ever turned up. Tom was heartbroken. If he'd known his brother was willing to kill himself over that stupid painting, he would have given it to him. The sale of Riverside Farm was, interestingly, the high point of the auction. As Mr. Langer expected, a bidding war drove the price up to $80,000. Knowing the elements that the artist had particularly loved about it, provided to Mr. Langer by Tom just prior to the auction, made the new owner admire it even more than he already did. Though the element that was the purchaser's especial favorite was the farmhand who stood by the milkmaid, holding her hand and smiling directly into her eyes.
Whatever happened to Tom?
He continued being a lawyer.
And Larry, did they ever find the body?
That's the point. If you listen to the description at the beginning, the milkmaid is alone.
Oh, so he's in the painting. This is like Twilight
Yes.
Zone. Ah, I'm sorry. I know the.
Yes, you
What?
really need to pay attention when you read
I
or
did-
listen. All right, so that is the story, and now we have pictures to look at.
Yes. I brought pictures that are featured in the calendar that the Friends of the Adams Free Library published in their calendar this year.
Oh, cool.
So they're selling it at the library for $13, and they're all pictures of Adams, historic and scenic. Are we going to show the first one?
All right. Yes, put that up, please, Joanne. No, I will not. All right, so this, of course, is the Adams Free Library itself, which is also a war memorial.
Correct. I think the trustees of the library were all veterans, or most of them were veterans, and they knew they wouldn't get the library built unless it was connected with something of the Civil War veterans. And you know, Adams and North Adams split in '78, and the North Adams had the Civil War Memorial. So from 1878 to 1899, when this place opened, Adams did not have a proper memorial to the Civil War veterans. So this was a major point in getting the library built. And this building was also, the cornerstone of this was laid by President
William McKinley,
whose statue was out front. So.
Yeah, and of course, there's that wonderful chair that was built for him that he never sat in.
Correct. Supposedly he did not, according to the newspaper account, he refused to sit in that chair, and he wanted to sit in a chair with the common people. So.
Yeah, if you are ever in Adams and you have the time to go in the Adams Free Library and you get the opportunity to go upstairs and look at Memorial Hall, do not pass it up. You will never forgive yourself if you miss it, and neither will Eugene or I.
There's a brochure, and the library staff will let you go up. You have to sign in, and you get up there, and you can see all the Civil War material. And the room is just the way it was back in 1899. So it's perfectly preserved.
Yes, and I believe they still use the original chairs.
Yep, it still has the same chairs that they bought in 1899.
And it also has some things on exhibit, some wrist breaker cavalry sabers,
Correct.
and some guns that are all that's left of the Civil War exhibit that we held there.
That's right. I remember the three towns, Adams, North Adams, and Williamstown.
Yes,
had an
and we
exhibit in
started
Williamstown.
with the mother town, moved to North Adams, and then to Williamstown. And we found some wonderful things in all three towns. When we were over in Williamstown, Darrell English, who was co-curator with me, went in their back room to look around and shouted, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And someone, "Oh, that's just Barney's bear gun." Barney was a guy who came back from the Civil War and used this gun to hunt bears with. Well, what Darrell recognized was that that gun was a Sharps-made sharpshooter's rifle with a vernier sight worth 5 figures.
Wow.
And that went into the exhibit there. And then when I was packing up the exhibit, the woman there brought out a book and showed it to me, the autobiography of Reverend William Stocking. Now, Reverend Stocking, you wouldn't know the name, but he was born in the Middle East. His parents were missionaries from, I'm tempted to say New Rochelle, that area there. And right across the road was another family of missionaries from Tennessee. And they were in and out of each other's houses all the time. It was like it was one big family. Well, then the parents went home. Civil War came along. Reverend Stocking and his brothers all enlisted, served in the Union Army. And then sometime after the war, he was traveling and happened to be in Tennessee and looked up that family, and there was a very happy reunion, and he discovered then that their sons had also been in the Civil War on the opposite side, and they'd been in some battles together without realizing it. But while I was looking through that, I started oh my godding. In his chapter on the Civil War, he tells a little story about how he and his company were guarding a dinky little railroad depot, and they were just about to go off duty when President Lincoln rushed through with his family to put them on a train. And knowing the president was coming back, the sergeant quick told everyone, "Get in formation." And as soon as he appeared, the sergeant called 10 hot. And the president walked down the line, paused to look every man in the face. Didn't say anything, but wow.
A great moment to be with Abe
Yes,
Lincoln.
indeed. All right. Now it will advance to the next picture.
Oh, good.
And this is the Alerts Ball circa 1974. And as we observed at the beginning, if you look underneath the telephone number there, you can see even the men were wearing gowns.
That's our fire chief to the far right, or our former fire chief, Art Hathaway, and his wife. I think her name was Muriel. And then there's Victor Bednarz and his wife, I can't remember her first name now, but behind them is Herbie Gross, and the other side is, what's his name, Bruce Bennett. But also in this picture is Jack Dean, and Joe Dean is way in the back, and the Alerts Ball is, I think they've had, they started in 1876, and I believe they've had 145 of them. This
Wow.
one took place in the armory, the old armory in Adams. And this is the Grand March. So every single one of their balls has a Grand March, and they're directed. And these guys are wearing their Edwardian uniforms, and I don't think they use them anymore. I think they can't, they're too expensive to replace. But every now and then they pull out the ones that they do have that are available, and they always look great in a parade.
Do they have any women in the alerts now?
They do, yes, they do. I don't know how many, one or two at least, that I've seen.
So if they don't wear their Edwardian uniforms, what do they wear?
They have regular blue uniforms, dress uniforms.
Oh,
Yeah.
you had me worried there for a second. All right, next up. And I do recognize this. Well, here, let me, yeah, you can see there it's the Boston and Albany Depot.
This is a great postcard. You know, I love how they colored them in those days. They must have taken some photograph and then just doctored it quite a bit.
Yeah, hand painted, I expect. Yeah. Although once they had the color for one photo, then they could.
Well, it's the sky. The sky is what they really worked on. And you see, like, they added smoke to the train. This place is still standing. It's you know, the AJ's Pub on Pleasant Street, and that what's the railroad track is now the Ashawiltacook Rail Trail. So where those people are standing in front of, there's now a spot for them where people dine. You know, well, not nowadays, but in the summertime they have tables outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't keep Union Depot here in North Adams.
Yeah, we're lucky that we still have this, that it didn't get demolished. I don't know if it was ever planned to demolish it, but.
Yeah, I know you've lost some things, but you didn't lose things in the scale that we did here.
Right. There was a plan in '69 to tear down most of Park Street, but that got voted down by town meeting.
All right, and this, there we go.
You like to introduce them, so.
Yes, all right, this is the Lapham House. And who were the Laphams?
The Laphams were pioneer people in Adams. They owned quite a bit of property. The original Laphams owned one side, each side of the valley. One owned the property on the east side and the other on the west side of the valley. But this is down on Park Street, and this building was torn down to make way for C.T. Plunkett's mansion, which is today our town hall. So what you're looking at is Park Street here. The building to the right was also there, but it was moved, and it was moved up to, let's call it Bob's Hill now, but B Street. There's something like, I don't know, we're up to counting 50 buildings in Adams that have actually been moved from their original location. But this place was also the home of, go on to the next slide.
All right. Oh, I love that fence.
And that's the fence to, well, you're going to see the mansion that went to later on. It was the home of Charles Pierce Burton, who wrote the boy adventure series, Boys of Bob's Hill, that the North Adams Library reprinted. And that's him on the left, and on the right is Harry Holmes, Charles Pierce Burton was Pedro, the secretary of the Boys of Bob's Hill, and that's Benny Wade. He's another character in that those adventure series. And they took place mostly, well, the first two were definitely all of it took place in Adams. He wrote 13 of these books, and later on there were different places they would travel to, South America, then there was a Boy Scout one, and Harry Holmes, Charles Pierce Burton, his mother passed away when he was an infant, and his father left him with his aunt there in the Lapham house, and he spent maybe 12 years in Adams. Then when he turned sometime in his 60s or 50s, he started writing his adventure series all about his exploits as a young boy in Adams.
Oh, cool. I like that jacket or sweater the other one is wearing. It looks like a military uniform.
With the little sash with the
Yeah.
buttons, yeah.
The row of buttons
Yeah.
coming down there. Oh, that's cool.
Harry Holmes became a doctor. Actually, he grew up in that house at the far right in this picture, which is now the Daily Grind.
Yeah, is that the one that I'm thinking of that has the little fake tower
No,
at one end?
no, not this one.
Yeah, Carlton's Clothing is there, I think.
This is a picture of Park Street. I think we figured it's 1938. I can't remember why. Oh, probably I could see, when I enlarged it, you could see a 38 on the license plates of these cars. And that building with the American flag on it was our post office. And it was our post office from about 1896 to about 1940, when they built, during the Depression, the post office was built as a WPA project, and it was moved up to Center Street.
And I see Miss Adams was doing business then.
Well, Miss Adams wasn't there yet, didn't get there till 1949. There was
Well,
another
there's
diner
a little
there.
sign there that says diner.
Yeah,
so.
there was a diner there, a smaller one, a wooden. It was still, I'm assuming, sort of a railroad car looking thing, but the one that's there now replaced that one. And the big elm tree, that elm tree was there, I think, up until maybe the 60s. Elm trees were big in Adams. Elm trees were big everywhere in this area. I believe there was something like 200 of them, and they were all cut down when they were killed by Dutch elm disease.
All right, and I see the firehouse,
Tucked back in there.
just a little bit of the firehouse.
And the firehouse was built first in 1890, and then the building to the red brick building was built in 95 or 96, and then the one in the yellow was built, I think, in 97. So they surrounded it and encased it.
Yeah, keep it from escaping. And now this Bay State Clothing House, wasn't Woolworth's in there later?
No, Schiff's Clothing was in there later, and now I think it's split up into a couple of offices. I'm not sure if there's a weaver in there.
I thought Schiff Clothing was further to the north.
No, that was Schiff's Clothing. He was on Summer Street for years, for like 85, 90 years, and then he moved over to Park Street when Bay State Clothing went out of business.
Oh, because I remember going into a store like Woolworth's or Newberry's, and I think it was.
And it wasn't
in there.
No, it would be a Woolworths up the street, unless you can remember Bremen's. But Bremen's was out of business in the 50s, which was just north of that, and Bremen's was like a Woolworths.
Well, it's a good thing you're here to correct me.
You're welcome.
I didn't say thank you.
Oh, I thought I heard that. I thought I heard your gratitude.
Just keep thinking that. All right, and I know where this is. This is the former kitchen of the Susan B. Anthony house.
Yep.
And it's a shame that they disconnected the chimney for that fireplace.
Well, that fireplace was rebuilt. It was not there. It was removed, and when the new owners, Carol Cross, had reconstructed it. So this is not original. This is a remake of it. We lost a lot of chimneys and hearths in Adams because of people switched to stoves. Technology. Stoves were easy, more efficient, easier to operate, and so they got rid of their fireplaces and their hearths. They didn't preserve them.
Now, well, I made two suggestions to them. For one thing, they have signage there in the kitchen, and it's actually on the opposite wall from this, that the hearth was the center of the home. And it seems to me that that phrase would be much better put across here.
Oh, yeah.
On that wooden beam. And the other thing is if that hearth cannot be used, they should consider building a little structure like a shed with a full-size hearth in it and do open hearth cooking demonstrations.
Oh, yeah. People love to watch that. The room in the back there that you see with the light coming from is the actual room where Susan B. Anthony was born. That's the actual birthing room. And they know that. And there was probably a chimney, a fireplace on the opposite side of this, so it would have been in one of the warmer rooms in the house. And I believe it faces west and south too, which would be the southwest, so that there would always, you most likely get the sunshine in there.
Yeah, it'd be warm in the afternoon. Yeah, I remember seeing an open hearth cooking demonstration once at
Deerfield used to have them all
Deerfield.
the time.
Yeah, they do have them, and Memorial Hall also does them. But not in Memorial Hall. But it was very interesting to see, and the woman was constantly comparing what she was doing with the way your mother does things. If your mother wants to simmer something, what does she do? She turns down the heat. Well, you can't do that with this, so you have to raise the pot so it's not so close to the coals. And of course, it was not an open fire, it was coals.
Coals are a more efficient cooking.
Yes.
You can control the heat better,
Yeah, and of course, that Dutch oven. The one thing I've seen that was probably better than a Dutch oven was at Hancock Shaker Village. Their big kitchen has a number of hearths, and there's one oven that's built into a chimney, and it was used for roasting meat because the heat was coming up as well as the smoke, and they just put something in there and close it, and it could roast away. Whereas for something like this, something that I always wonder is how many children today can relate to why the witch expects Gretel to be stupid enough to climb in the oven to see if it's hot enough. You know, you want to know if it's hot enough, it rings a little bell or a buzzer goes off. And the thing is, Ralph Gould, in his book Yankee Boyhood, wrote that when his mother was cooking with her brick oven, she'd open the door and stick her arm in there and could tell from years of experience, is this a quick oven, a moderate oven, or a slow oven?
Did she ever burn her arm?
No.
Catch on fire?
No, just knew, yeah, this is right, or no, we need to burn the fire a while longer. All right, we now have about 18 minutes left. So here we are looking at, looking at Mount Greylock, and where are we looking at it from?
Anthony's Pool.
Ooh.
Anthony's Pool was a hot spot in the summertime. Well, maybe a cold spot on a hot summer day. You'll see there's swings back there. There's a dance hall back there.
A diving board in the foreground.
You can see the diving board, yes, even though it's covered up with
which folks at home can't see because of the phone number, but trust me, it's there.
This place was so popular from like the 1930s to about the 1970s. Everybody has great memories of this place. We found this picture as a small Ektachrome slide, a 4x6 slide, and it needed lots and lots of work to bring it back to its original color. But I think we did a pretty good job. Everything looks green and it looks blue. So it's a good
Who
shape.
did the editing?
Me.
Oh, good for you.
Photoshop. That's not even the original sky. I even brought the sky in from somewhere else.
Well, we won't tell anybody.
Shh.
All right, this one I do not recognize at all.
I'm not. Did they take this? I think this guy has to be taken somewhere in Cheshire somewhere.
The caption is Mount Greylock Crescent Moon.
Can you see the moon?
Yes, I
you
do.
You can. I can't see it from here. This is taken by.
It's down on the screen. It's just above that level of pinkish orange.
That's Mount Greylock, you know. So it's that whole that horizon that we see in Adams. Steph Rapasarda took this photograph, and I have to admit it was more of a panoramic, and the moon was actually on the other side of the tree, and I copied the moon and put it over here, just because it wouldn't fit on the calendar that way, or the picture would be too small.
Makes sense.
But it has that distinctive profile of Mount Greylock with its peak and and it's beautiful. She captured it at this wonderful time of day with the afterglow at sunset.
Oh, yes. All right.
This is the Forest Park Country Club. Oh, I should have let you say that. Wow.
Well, no, I didn't actually recognize it.
Oh, it had the caption, though. Doesn't the caption say Forest Park?
Yes, Forest Park Clubhouse.
I don't know if they've modified it. I got to go look at it again.
Well, I believe they have.
Yeah, something's missing from the back.
If the angle that I'm looking at it is correct, this is the driveway when you come up from
the
downtown.
actual road, yes.
All right. Then in the back here, there is a
banquet hall.
Yeah, a banquet hall.
Yeah. In the background is a pavilion that used to be there. I don't know that. Remember you a couple of weeks ago, a couple of shows ago, you had the picture of that observatory.
Yes.
I don't know where that observatory was on the property. But back there is a pavilion, and that pavilion hosted William McKinley's party. Susan B. Anthony spoke there when she came to Adams. That building, I know, collapsed under a heavy snowstorm back in 1905 or something like that. This picture was taken by Wells Thompson, who was a local owner a pharmacy. He was a pharmacist, and his pharmacy was located where the Adams Community Bank is, which across from the post office. That was the old South Adams Savings Bank. They tore down his pharmacy to build the South Adams Savings Bank in 1923.
Well, that wasn't very nice.
Well, they wanted to build the bank was important to them, and he used to take pictures. He has a whole collection. These are all glass slides, and he used to give magic lantern shows of these glass slides. But he did them in black and white. But his wife colored them. So his wife is the one who went and actually painted over those black and white photographs and added sky and trees and green and all that.
Oh, that's neat. So you still have those?
Yeah, his son. Their son gave the Historical Society his collection back in like 1970s. He was still alive. And we have about maybe, I would easily say 200 of his slides. These glass slides that are like 4 by 6. So, what's that mean?
That was my phone.
Oh.
I foolishly forgot to turn it off.
I turned mine off.
How foolish.
We have to start the program with, please reset.
All right. Oh, yeah, I was going to, it's from the Pines. And I was going to say it's from, come on, there we go. I was going to say from Greylock Glen.
Very good. I took this shot. This is one of my photographs. And the pines are, you ever been in the woods where they find these pine trees that are all planted in a row? And I believe it was a depression project where they paid farmers to reforest their farmland. Do you have any in North Adams? We have they're in
Not
Adams.
that I'm aware of.
And in Savoy, I've gone up into Savoy. They're everywhere in Savoy.
Well, I believe in the mountain towns, the state just confiscated land to make state forest.
Oh. Nope, I think they actually, they paid farmers to actually plant trees. And the pine trees were great for when they were smaller because they were good for mushrooming. The mushrooms loved it underneath the pine trees. But now the pines are very, very tall. What are they? They got to be like 80 years old, 90 years old, and they're starting to crash into each other, and they don't look as good as they did back in the 70s and the 60s. But this is a great shot in wintertime. I mean, it's autumn, so.
All right, and this would be the, it's the residence of W.B. Plunkett.
Can't see it because of the phone number covering it. Yep, this used to stand on Park Street where the Greylock Federal Credit Union is there, right near the Ashawultacook Trail and all that.
So this is the one where
President McKinley stayed.
McKinley stayed and
yes.
ran the summer White House.
Yes, well, I don't know. The Plunkett brothers, their father built this, W.C. Plunkett, just after the Civil War in 1869. He made a lot of money during the Civil War, and when that ended, he built this. But before he built this, he pretty much built the first Congregational church in Adams. He built that in '68, and then in '69 he actually went and built his own mansion. He named it Montreath after his mother's estate in Ireland. His mother's estate in Ireland. His mother was Irish Protestant, and she came to the States and was living in Lenox, and his father was Irish Catholic. And he was in Lenox and visited her, and he fell in love. He went back to wherever he was going, and then he turned around and came back and said, "I can't leave, I love you." And he gave up the Catholic faith, raised him, became a Protestant, and raised all those Plunkett sons who are, famous throughout the county. There's a Plunkett who pretty much ran Hinsdale, and a Plunkett in Pittsfield, and then they had kids. His two sons became even more famous and rich with William McKinley. This building was torn down in probably 1937 or 38. I know they were talking about it, but I have no record of it actually being torn down. The newspaper did not record that. And it was torn down because the people who bought it at auction, I think, didn't want to pay the taxes on it. So,
what did they buy it for then?
The land, because it was Park Street property, and and they sold it later on to Jacob Weinberg, who put the first supermarket in Adams there. So.
All right, and we have one more photo here, I believe. Now, before we go to that, there's this light structure over here, and I'm guessing that's the carriage entrance.
Yes, the porte cochere.
I was
going
to say I've never seen one with 2 stories before, but that's not true. Mark Hopkins' mansion on Nob Hill in San Francisco had, I think it was 3 stories.
Oh, but there would be just a porch or a sitting space. It wouldn't necessarily mean anything for the carriages.
And I'm going to guess, I shouldn't have looked. It says Peck's Falls. I was going to suggest, damn it.
Bellevue?
Yes, Bellevue.
Right. Yeah, those are our 2 falls in Adams, Bellevue and Peck's. So
now where is Peck's Falls?
It's up at the Greylock Glen. And if you drive up to the Glen and take that left there, where you have to go, there is a sign where the path goes down to here. It's a nice little respite in the heat of summer because it's covered by pine trees cover over it, and the water is so cold that it really is. It's air conditioned down there in the summertime, and the water is cold.
Yeah, it looks cold there.
Well, here it's been iced over, so.
It puts me in mind a little of Bashbish Falls, though I've never actually been there.
Yeah, well, Bashbish is much bigger.
Well,
much
but
bigger.
I mean, it looks a little like Bashbish.
Yeah.
I've got to get down there someday.
Someday. There's actually two falls on Peck's Brook. This one, and then there's a lower falls, which is a little bit more. It's a bigger drop and a sharper drop, but it's very difficult to get to. You've got to crawl through little ravines to actually see it. You can see it from a distance, but this one is readily accessible. You can walk to it.
Yeah, that is nice.
And this is another. Oh, that was another step.
Oh, and here we are, a great gift.
Right, I'm pushing this. It's a fundraiser for the Friends of the Library. You've seen all these pictures. Now you can go to the library and buy one, or even call me. You see my phone number there at my shop, or if you're on Facebook, message me on Facebook, and I'll get you one. They're great gifts to give out to people from who don't live in Adams anymore, who could be proud of their town and good memorabilia.
I should think Roger Urban would like one of those. Now, I see we've still got an arrow here, so.
Keep going. I threw other. This one was in that bunch. I love the gas stations in Adams. This is a very good one. This is on North Summer Street, B&L Garage. Bonnie Sacco and Louis Sacco and Bonnie. Oh, I can't remember his name now. Whatever. It's not a gas station anymore, but the garages are still there. A guy.
It's a shame the pumps are gone.
Yeah, that orange.
They'd be
and
worth
blue.
a fortune today.
Yeah. So with the cars. The cars look like what? The 30s vintage, 40s. Yeah, they're like 30s, 40 vintage. I think there's a couple more pictures that I threw in there that just in case. Oh. I put this in here. This is Park Street. This is the trolleys in front of what is now the Coffee Revolution building right near the Ashawilta Trail crosses right there. In the background, you can see the building that was moved when they built the post office. And then
there's that little tower that I like.
Yeah.
And I believe I can see one of L.L. Brown's mills in the background.
Yep, you do.
Because I remember seeing that when I was a little kid and we were going to Pittsfield. We'd go by there.
And that roof over the top of the trolley is Thompson's Pharmacy before they tore it down for the bank, to build the bank. And if you're ever going down Route 8 and you come to this spot and you'll still see a trolley track sticking up out of the road. I don't know, it never goes away. It always reappears when the road goes bad. But that trolley track.
Actually, I think
if you're ever on Route 8,
they ought to make it visible, and maybe cover it with something that shows that it's still there.
Yeah, right. A little glass bubble encase it with a plaque in front of it.
Yeah.
Then you have to drive around it.
And that's the last one.
I think it is. Yep.
So, Joanne, there we are.
Yay, we're back.
Hey, well, I'm afraid you're out of luck if you want to guess about the building, because we're almost out of time. We have about 4 minutes remaining. So would you like to spill the beans about what building that is?
That is, some people may remember it as the Berkshire Screw Manufacturing Company, who later on became Berkmatics, I believe. Berkshire Spinning, Metal Spinning, and then Berkmatics. Actually, when they owned it, I think it was only one story, with the foundation one story. The building on the thing on the right there was long gone from what I remember. But it was a Jenks mill, and the Jenks from Cheshire, the Jesse Jenks, not the Jenks from Adams. It was also Robert Tyler, one of the Tylers, who was big in building the Brown Street plant here in North Adams, and this is one of his early mills. It's at the bottom of Harbor Hill, so on Route 8, when you're leaving Adams, just before you crossed into the Cheshire line, this is down in the gully there.
So when you get down that way, look for the old shipyards, and That's
If you're on the
in the harbor.
if you're at the Ashuapulcook, you'll see the waterfalls, the dam and the waterfall.
Yes.
The dam diverted the water to operate this the water mill, the water turbine. And I
Now,
believe
of
the
course, when
powerhouse
I
is
say
still there.
watch for the shipyards, there aren't any. It was Cheshire Harbor for the Underground Railroad.
I don't know how true that is, but it could be. I don't know. It was called Harbor well before the Underground Railroad was started. We've got records where it was called the Harbor in 1829. And I think the harbor was another word for, a holler and a hollow. It's any place that has a steep ravine, a narrow valley and a steep ravine, I think was a term for a harbor. So
That'd be something worth looking up.
to see the etymology of the word harbor and what it was used for back in those days. But
So we have just under 2 minutes remaining. Hey, this was a fast hour.
yes, it did go by.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Pictures do it.
Now, sometime I will have to show you the calendar that I did a few years ago. I devoted it to water photos.
Oh, like ocean and
Well,
rivers
no,
and ponds or
rivers, bodies of water, puddles.
puddles. That's about
Yeah.
a bucket of water.
No, nothing like that. But the two winter photos were ice, like frost and ice in a bottle, that had frozen.
Interesting.
Yeah, water is one of my favorite subjects for photography.
Plan it for one of our shows. And I should, if I can find it, I'd dig out my mother's photo album of, she grew up in North Adams, and she has some great pictures of North Adams, of the Hadley Overpass opening, her standing in front of the North Adams Library in her usherette uniform. She was an usherette at the Paramount. I can't think of what other pictures she had in North Adams that are pretty good.
Oh, that sounds great.
But I lost
I'd
the
love
album.
to see those.
It's not in the place I usually keep it, so hopefully it'll turn up somewhere.
Maybe your sister walked off with it. Well,
No,
hey,
she
we
wouldn't.
have
She
about
wouldn't do that.
15 seconds remaining. So thank you, Eugene, for coming. It's wonderful to have you here, as always. Thank you, too, for watching. Joanne, thank you for directing. And we will see you in 2 weeks here out on Porch Talk.
Till then, happy Hanukkah.